Onomatopoeia is one of the most significant devices in poetry in general. Onomatopoeia is a word whose sound imitates its meaning. We have different examples about onomatopoeia, like splat of water, roar of a lion, squeaking of a door, and quack of a duck, and also we have more examples about onomatopoeia, as we can see in this slide here. More onomatopoeia. The bee buzzed. Look at the word buzz. Buzzed by my ear. The clock ticked. Look at the tick, 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 okay, of the clock. The clock ticked down the final hour. The engine purred while awaiting the green light. Purred. Look at the engine. This is onomatopoeia. So, again, onomatopoeia is a word whose sound imitates its meaning. Imitates its meaning. The bee buzzed by my ear, the clock ticked, and the engine purred. When it comes to stanza, for instance, in a poem, a stanza is defined as the unit of lines grouped together. It's similar to the paragraph in prose writing. Usually the poem is divided into different number of stanzas. It could be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stanzas. It depends on the author himself. So sometimes we have a couplet. A couplet, it's a stanza which consists of 2 lines that rhyme, while a quatrain is a stanza consisting of 4 lines. When we read the poem, we have different moods and tones that actually reveal while reading this poem. The mood, for instance, is the feeling a poem creates for the reader. Whether after reading this story I feel cheerful, reflective, gloomy, humorous, etc. While the tone of the story is the attitude a poem takes toward the subject itself. The tone is usually described as formal, informal, sarcastic, comic, playful, threatening, etc. This is the difference between mood and tone. Another important element in poetry, which is imagery. Imagery is representation of the 5 senses, like sight, taste, touch, sound, and smell. And it creates mental images about a poem's subject, which means that the author tries to let you feel things as if you are watching it. Let you feel in his emotions and feelings as if you are touching it sometimes or smell it. This is the meaning of imagery. Imagery means using the 5 senses, sight, taste, touch, sound, and smell, in order to create a mental image about the poem's subject. For instance, here we have an example: continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way. Look at the word shine and twinkle. They are addressing your sight. They are addressing your sight, as if the author would like to pay your attention about the things he feels, or the things he tastes, the things he touches, or he hears, etc. And also we have something important in literature called the symbol. A symbol is a word or object that has its own meaning and represents another word, object, or idea. If we take this as an example, the daffodils represent happiness and pleasure to the author. Daffodil here, the daffodil represent happiness, beauty, pleasure for the author. Another example, the white dove. Maybe it's known that the white dove is representing the peace in general in the world. Okay, so a white dove was hovering in the sky doesn't mean that a white dove, uh, as the dove that we know actually flying in the sky, but here he is trying to tell us that a peace is coming, maybe between two rival countries, or a peace between people, a peace in general in the world, etc. So this is the meaning of white dove here in the poetry. Also, we have something important in sound devices called assonance. Assonance is the repetition of a vowel sound in two or more words in a line of a poem, which means that the same sound, the same vowel sound in the beginning of each word is the same in many words in this line. Which, look at the word which. Look at the slanted I here. Is, bliss, here, here, and here, and here. Look at the I here. Which, I, is, I, bliss, I, solitude, solitude, I. So all are pronounced I. So this is called assonance. Assonance. Sorry. The assonance, repeated vowel sounds in a line or lines of poetry. Like, look at this, another example. Lake, fate, base, fade. All share the long A sound. A, 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 A. Look at this. Slow, the low, gradual moan came in the snowing. Slow, low, moan, snowing. And in order to make a difference actually between assonance and consonance, we have to know that consonance is similar to alliteration, except the repeated consonant sound can be anywhere in the word. Look at this, like silken, sad, uncertain, rustling, etc. So there is a repetition of one sound in the line or in the whole poem or stanza in general. So this is called consonance. Consonance. Silken, sad, uncertain, rustling, s, s, c, s, etc. While the refrain is the repetition of one or more phrases or lines at certain intervals, usually at the end of each stanza, similar to the chorus in a song. Repetition is a word or phrase repeated within a line or stanza. When the author repeats maybe a word, maybe two, maybe three words, maybe repeat an expression in the first stanza and in the second stanza, etc. So this is called repetition, which meant to be focusing on a certain idea or certain impression or certain thoughts. This is poetry in general. This is poetry. So poetry is a type of literature that expresses ideas, as we said, feelings, or tells a story in a specific form or usually using lines or stanza. This is in general. Well, the point of view in poetry is also an important element when talking about the poet or the speaker. The poet usually is the author of the poem, while the speaker of the poem is the narrator of the poem. This is the difference between a poet and the speaker, which is so important to know. In fact, there are different forms for poetry. The form of the poetry in general is the appearance of the words on the page, while the line is a group of words together on one line of the poem. The stanza is a group of lines arranged together. You see, and this is an example of a stanza. A word is dead when it is said, some say. I say it just begins to live that day. This is a very simple poem, okay, consisting of two stanzas. This is called a line, and this is called a stanza 1, and this is the second stanza for this poem. Some authors, in fact, like to reveal their ideas, thoughts, impressions, stories sometimes, without being restricted with rhyme, rhythm, and all these stanzas, etc. This is called free verse poetry. Free verse poetry is a very conversational sound, okay, like someone talking with you. Okay, a more modern type of poetry. Why it's a modern type of poetry? Because there are no restrictions. No restrictions in terms of rhyme, no restrictions in terms of rhythm, no restrictions even in figurative language like metaphors, simile, etc. It depends. So this is called a free verse poetry. The rhyme, as you know, like two words sounds alike because they share the same ending vowel sound, like the words lamp and stamp. Okay? The end rhyme, okay, this is called the end rhyme, like the word string here in this stanza and the word ring. This is the end rhyme. We have another type of rhyme called internal rhyme, which is not at the end of the line, but usually in the middle of the line. Okay, so this is called internal rhyme, which is a word inside a line rhymes with another word on the same line.